Resident Evil 4 is a game I hear many people praise as one of the greatest games of all time. And I'm here to tell you, no, you're wrong. The game is garbage. The game sucks. Your opinion is terrible. No, I'm just fucking around. I think the game is great. I just wouldn't consider it one of the greatest games of all time. If it's one of your favorites or something you consider to be one of the greatest of all time, that's completely fine. I just disagree with you heavily. So this is just my attempt to validate my thoughts on the game and just give my review for it. So without further ado, let me just get into it.
Oh boy. Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's hope it pays off for you. In all seriousness, hey guys, welcome back. After finally playing the RE4 remake, I've seen quite a few bad videos on the game. Today, I figure I saw by responding to Colin's review of the game, why it isn't as good as what you and I brought it up to be. I do like Colin several of his videos, so this isn't a personal attack on him or his opinions, but many of his reasons for not praising the game as much are pretty bad, both when it comes to his gameplay analysis, and most especially the story, where he gets so much just factually wrong. So we're going over that first, since A is what he starts off with, and B is easily the worst part of the video. That one guy who tried making a response video to Colin didn't even try to defend the story at all, and his video was also pretty bad. So without further ado, let's get straight into this, because boredom kills me.
The story for this game is probably my biggest dislike. Like, if this game actually had any sort of compelling narrative or characters with any meaningful development, I would have raised my score for this game, and in all honesty, I would have considered it one of the best. But let me talk about my major criticisms with this game's story. Number one, the dialogue is terrible. I think the longest I got in this game without rolling my eyes at one of Leon's corny-ass jokes, or Ashley being a mentally challenged, let's just say blonde. I think the longest I went in this game without some corny-ass dialogue was like maybe 20 minutes. I have a funny moments playthrough on my channel you can watch where I make fun of some of the dialogue in this game, but overall the dialogue is mediocre at best, and even that still feels generous saying that. It's like the writers took the worst dialogue from the MCU, Devil May Cry, Pokemon, anime, and a backpack of Spider-Man's worst jokes and compiled all of that into a script. And normally I wouldn't blame voice actors for bad dialogue, but Jesus, the voice acting in this game is like 60% bad and like 40% good.
You want to get ugly? Let's get ugly.
There's some one-liners in there, and I got to create a bunch of them too. Yeah, my favorite one-liner, I think, when he's about to fight Mendez, and he says, "You want to get ugly? Let's get ugly." I wrote that.
Fire this man expeditiously.
What's wrong with that? I mean, seriously, what's wrong with that line? It's just Leon making light of the situation, which we're getting back to. And plus, it kind of makes sense, considering that Mendez just turned to this abominable centipede monster, so that isn't too out of place to say. You criticize Leon and his lines for being corny, which we're going to dive deeper into this video, but simply being corny isn't inherently bad. It just simply depends on the execution. You can argue that the execution isn't good, but we'll have to go deeper into the video to get more elaboration from his end, so I'll elaborate more when I get there as well.
And like, I swear, these people weren't capable of conveying any type of emotion.
Let's stay back. I might hurt you again. I'm so scared. When that happened, I wasn't myself anymore. I was something else.
Once again, what's wrong with that? Problem is that you say, this thing is bad, but you fail to elaborate why it's bad, and just throw a joke or meme to pull attention away from your lack of arguments. Are you referring to it actually sounds kind of weird when she's crying? Well, guess what? People, when they cry, especially excessively so, tend to have unusual facial expressions, or sound strange when they're very emotional. It's like making fun of the Raimi Spider-Man films for Peter looking weird when he cries. Honestly, if you ever cried as hard as him, I think you'll look pretty weird as well. Same principle applies here. I would say that Ashley's actor does a pretty good job of seeing it, making it seem as though she's sad. In fact, she's good all across the board in this game. Just about all the actors are. The only exception I can think of is, of course, Ada. That's been pointed out before so many times at this point, bringing it up is basically just the norm. But again, please provide examples and elaboration.
My second problem is the characters in this game are awful. Now, I haven't played any of the other Resident Evil games, so I'm not going to talk too much in terms of depth these characters get, because there's probably aspects to Leon and unlike other non-new characters that I don't know anything about because I haven't played the other game. They give us a lazy backstory for Leon in the beginning of the game, but I don't really understand or care for any of the stuff they show about Leon's backstory because, again, I don't understand any of it because I haven't played any of the other games. So that part's on me. I take full responsibility for that.
I guess asking for elaboration is a lost cause at this point. Why, for the love of God, is the backstory lazy? It's literally a brief recap on the events of Resident Evil 2, which is the first game Leon appears in, as well as a brief glimpse of RE3 with Raccoon City being nuked. Don't you hear that, guys? The past two games were just lazy backstory for this one. As for it being confusing, I still don't see how. Even if you haven't played the previous games, the recap still provides context for those that may have played the previous remakes, as well as bridging the gap between the 6 years in between 2 and 4. We learn about Leon's training to become a government agent, so what's his setup for his character arc in this game? Which you claim he doesn't have, which is provably false. Saying that you don't care about anything said in the prologue leads me to believe that you obviously went in not having any intention to pay attention to the story, which is honestly fine if you're just playing casually, but since this is a video review on why the game isn't a masterpiece, I expect more effort than this, and the lack of attention is going to bite you in the ass later on down the line. Wait, it's not down the line, it's happening right now.
But for Resident Evil 4, Leon gets no compelling or deep character arc, and he is pretty much exactly the same at the beginning of the story as he is at the end of the story. And he also has no internal conflict or character flaws that get explored in any meaningful way. And like I was talking about earlier, his dialogue is horrendous, like genuinely one of the corniest protagonists I've ever played as in a video game. I'd also like to add in this moment.
Well, after 6 years, that is one hell of a greeting, Ada.
You don't seem surprised. Interesting.
Try using knives next time. Better for close encounters.
2 hours later.
Ashley, it was you who catch him quick. Didn't I teach you? Knives are faster.
You peanut head motherfucker!
Okay, for the last part right there is what I'm talking about. You didn't pay attention, or were just being disingenuous. Ada was right behind Leon to the point where her gun was almost touching his back, which allowed him to grab her. Krauser, meanwhile, was a decent distance away to where pulling a gun on him is a smarter plan. But Leon couldn't possibly have guessed he has freaking superpowers, where he can just dash right next to him like he's a Matrix character. So total false equivalence. And as I said earlier, you're wrong about Leon not having an arc, because he does. In the beginning of this game, he's still traumatized from the events of RE2, particularly because he was unable to save anyone that night. Just about everyone he came across dies, or seemingly died, like what happened with Ada, because that's what his character is. He's a goody two-shoes Boy Scout that wants to do what he can to save others. He joined the RPD because of that.
I want to find out what's happening here, and stop whoever's behind it. Helping people like them? That's why I joined the Force.
That still carries over into this game, which Ada points out.
I guess I changed too.
You. Leon S. Kennedy. You haven't changed. You just think you have.
This time, he wants to make a difference. That's what motivates him to save Ashley, not just because it's his job or that he cares about her, even though he still does. He wants things to turn out better than last time, so at the end when he manages to save Ashley, it's a satisfying conclusion because he has this clear goal from the start of the game till the end, so I was wanting to come to terms with what happened 6 years prior. Watching this video is still very frustrating for me because he clearly just did not pay any attention to the story. What I've been able to tell, unless if it's super explicit, even though it's still pretty obvious in the game itself, you don't seem to be able to pick up what the story is trying to do unless it's a Sony game with 1,000 cry moments. I'm not one of those people who are against Sony games because they're quote-unquote movie games. You have the mindset that every Sony movie game is a masterpiece, has the best stories ever told, and so this is what you're looking for in a video game story. Not saying it's wrong to have taste, but there is a point where you seem to just want to be served something that is of your own taste, rather than judging it on its own terms, which really seems like the case when judging the other characters and their arcs.
Ashley was the most annoying bitch on the fucking planet, not only from a gameplay perspective as she kept getting knocked down or picked up by someone every 2 seconds, but from a character perspective as well. She was so goddamn irritating. She's a damsel in distress this whole fucking game, screaming, "Leon, Leon, help me, help me." Doesn't that sound familiar? Only MJ from the Raimi movies is a little bit more tolerable. And just like mostly every other character in this game, she has some of the shittiest dialogue, and her character arc in this game is she's scared of everything and can't do simple fucking tasks on her own, and then at the end of the game she's proud of herself because she can turn a wheel.
Get this for me.
Leave it to me. I'm actually pretty good at this stuff.
And oh, she has the confidence to now operate a wrecking ball, like... What a compelling character arc.
Okay, if you had so much trouble with Ashley this game, that's just a skill issue on your end. She is way easier to escort in this version compared to the original, and the hate of having to protect her there is overblown too. In the remake, if she gets hit hard enough, she'll go down, but you can easily pick her back up and she'll be just fine. Compared to OG, where there are several attacks that could one-shot her, I had a way better time protecting her this time around, besides allowing Mendez to grab her like 3 times during that chase scene, since I forgot to order her into tight formation. One time where I accidentally shot her, and one time she got hit again when she was down, and like one other time she got abducted and I didn't save her in time. That's about it. And all those instances were my fault, not the game's. So in other words,
get good.
let's not even forget that she is way more useful this time around. She helps way more often, such as the armory battle, where she throws up blue flames at the knights to stun them to allow you sometimes to either get shots in or to focus on another knight. Or when she goes by herself to save Leon from the cage trap, as opposed to the original, where she was trying to free herself when she stupidly and for no reason fell into that one trap in the castle. The remake also changed to make that part make more sense as well, leading to that good moment between her and Leon that I was talking about earlier. So it's a Wrecking Ball segment where she breaks the wall open to allow you to proceed. Or that part you criticized where if her generator is still alive when you walk past the bridge, she'll let go of the wheel to kill it, which is an optional event that happens, but also adds to Ashley's character moment, which makes her better. It's all feeds into her character arc where she's a scared damsel, yes, but as the story progresses, she gets more confident to where she is involved with the action. What she says about the wheel, that's what she's been doing for the whole game, where she is constantly doing that stuff. She's just referencing that she's basically been doing that ever since we first met her. And oh, come on, man. You tell me that you can operate Wrecking Ball, especially with how well Ashley does it. You're just once again being disingenuous and not paying attention.
Ada in this game is also pretty shit. She's there to get this amber for the person she's working for. Then she has a sudden change of heart at the end of the game to not turn over the amber because she sees, oh, the horror of what can be done with this type of stuff and what it can do. And this character arc is completely brain dead because she was at this place from the beginning of the game to the end of it. She saw very well what this disease was and what it can do. If seeing how bad this disease is what made her change, then why the fuck didn't she change sooner? And either just leave entirely if she doesn't care about Leon, or help Leon out. Like, what the fuck were you doing here this entire time?
Look here! Look, listen!
You missed the point once again. I swear, this review wouldn't be out of place in IGN. Anna doesn't have her change of heart because of what the Plagas could do. It's because Wesker literally plans on using it to kill billions of people, which is set up for his plan in Ori 5.
Ouroboros will be released into the atmosphere, ensuring complete global saturation.
No one in their right mind wants to be complicit in that type of beyond monstrous act. Ada might be a mercenary, but she isn't a heartless one either. She is shown to have her moments of compassion, especially for those that she cares about, which especially includes Leon. This is another reason why playing RE2 Remake helps. Ada does help Leon throughout the entire game, and to address your text, it's not only when it benefits her or her mission. She rings the church bell at the beginning of the game, saving Leon from all the village Ganardos, or when she saves him from Mendez. Or that one scene you showed, she manages to convince Wesker to allow Leon to live by saying he's useful as a distraction. It's also because she cares about him, to where she even tries to encourage Leon to leave so he won't get killed. Also in that part you showed, she tells Leon where Ashley is, when she knows that he won't abandon his mission. Another reason she betrays Wesker at the end is because of Leon, and since he's such a good guy, his behavior rubs off on her because she cares about him so much to where he inspires her to be a better person, which is kind of hinted at the very end where she sees Leon actually leaving while she holds her pilot at gunpoint to change course. So for all the character arcs you've tried to point out as being bad or non-existent, you've gotten all of them wrong.
Good job.
The villain for this game, Adam Sandler, was okay. But first I want to discuss my 3 big problems with him. My first problem is, if this dude can control Leon and Ashley, then why does he not do this more often? Especially since he knows they're trying to stop his plans. He literally only ever controls him or uses his ability when the plot wants him to, which is yeah, it's stupid as fuck. Like, why give him this ability? The second problem is he wants Leon dead throughout the game, and later in the game he tries to force Ashley to attempt to shoot him, but wow, isn't it convenient that this gun had no bullets when Ashley was about to shoot Leon? But also, it's like, hey, dumbass, if you're this all-powerful guy, and you clearly wanted Leon dead for this whole game, how about fucking kill him right here, instead of letting him live to keep soiling your plan? And it's like, this dude can't make up his fucking mind. He doesn't care if Leon dies, and he tries to get him killed throughout the entire game, but at the same time, he wants Leon to become infected. Like, bro, figure it out. What do you want to do? And my third problem with the villain is if he wanted Ashley infected to take over the US, why the fuck are they being so brain dead about it? Here's a thought. How about the first time you capture her, do your thing of giving her this liquid, which I would presume was like make her infected faster? Then after you do that, put her in a place where that's surrounded by all the defenses you have so that Leon can't stop your plan. Also, here's a thought. Why not use your ability to control / mentally fuck over Leon more often and have him be killed faster? Like, this villain is so stupid.
Alright, what more secure do they need to be? They held Ashley in a church, which is in a village with hundreds of their own people, at Del Lago and El Gante. Leon had to jump through a ton of hoops just to get to Ashley, with tons of enemies he had to kill and several puzzles he had to solve. That's about as secure as you can get. Things would have gone off without a hitch for them if it weren't for Leon. They never intended for him to be there, they just had to adjust accordingly. Saddler doesn't even take Leon seriously. He's been infected since near the very start of the game, so eventually he'll be a servant of him just like everyone else. But at the same time, he's just another guy to him. If any of his other lieutenants, such as Mendez, Ramon, or Krauser, kills him, that doesn't matter to him. Basically, the idea of let him turn if they can't, but kill him if they want to. Plus, in that scene, Leon's no threat to him since he's able to just use the force on him to stun him to prevent Leon from harming him. Like what he does later on when Leon tries to rescue Ashley from Saddler. The only thing allowing them to escape was Ada, who saves him again in the start of the final battle, so Saddler is perfectly able to defend himself from Leon when necessary, and having someone as skilled as Leon turn to his cause could be very beneficial. Plus, it's in Saddler's character to want to turn as many people as possible to his cause, since he's this fanatical zealot in this game. Lastly, the gun doesn't run out of ammo, it jams, specifically through stovepiping, which is why the sights kind of lock back. And since obviously Ashley has no shooting experience, it makes sense if still a little convenient, but that's not a big deal.
But besides those problems, he actually had some good monologues, he was intimidating when he was actually being competent, and he actually had at least a little depth behind his motivation to infect everyone with the plague. He wasn't a no-depth, one-dimensional villain who just wanted to take over the world with this disease for no reason, but even still, his motivation wasn't exactly the most compelling or sympathetic, and he also doesn't make our characters think in any different sort of way, and he also doesn't put them in any situation that would make them challenge their own, like, moral compass and think. Like, there's legitimately none of that. And all the other villains in this game were just pretty much Adam Sandler's puppets. Krauser was okay, he didn't really have any complex motivations or anything, he was just there for power. There was actually one moment in the story with Krauser where I thought we were about to get a good motivation.
Being a lackey for these maniacs won't bring your men back. And what the hell for? Revenge on the government? You think they would want that?
But nope.
Revenge. You think I'm doing all this for revenge? Isn't that what this is all about? See, in that jungle, I had a revelation. The most important thing in this world is pure, unadulterated power.
Hang in there, Squidward. It's all part of the job.
What's wrong with that? Again. There's nothing wrong with having a villain that is simple and straightforward. Especially since in the original game, that's what Saddler and pretty much everyone else is. And Krauser wanting power in this game is pretty interesting since he lost his men on his mission with Leon, where they were the only survivors, and he takes the loss so hard that he feels weak, and by having power, he can avoid being weak, since he still feels inferior to Leon, since he was the one that carried them in that mission. This is all in the game is pretty intriguing to see a guy who's essentially a dark foil to Leon, who takes loss and trauma in the worst way possible, as opposed to Leon who grows from his loss. And that's honestly more interesting than a cliche revenge plot against the US government, so at least one villain does challenge Leon on the moral level.
Anytime there's a villain that just only cares about money or power for no reason at all, it's just, like, it's boring. But Krauser had some cool moments and I loved his boss fights, but that's about it. This bootleg George Washington was one of the least intimidating and most laughable characters ever. I just could not take him seriously. And he's pretty much just a puppet of Adam Sandler, like I said. He's literally just a worse version of Adam Sandler. They have the same goals, the same motivations, it's just he's not as good, like, dialogue or monologue-wise, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's the point. Salazar is basically the pathetic right-hand man, which is a trope used in a lot of media. In fact, he's actually toned down compared to his original counterpart, who was way more over the top and pretty funny. Not to say this version isn't as well, but not as much. In fact, that's something I find very weird about this video. You complain about how this game's too goofy and silly, even though the remake is way more serious between it and the original. If you think that the dialogue is goofy here, just play or crap. Just watch some of the video calls or cutscenes from the OG 4.
Let our miserable insects out for some exercise down in the sewer.
Thanks. That should keep me company, 'cause boredom kills me.
You're nothing but an extra in my script, so don't get too carried away. Your biggest scene is over.
I don't ever remember being a part of your crappy script.
Well then, why don't you show me what a first-class script is like through your own actions? I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
You're here. Why don't I introduce you to it? It should keep you busy.
Can't remember the name, huh? A senior moment, perhaps.
This leads me to a point someone made in your comment section, and I'll pull it up right now.
A big problem with the writing of this game is that the original RE4 was very campy and purposefully so. It embraced the silliness of the Resident games that stumbled into being campy B-movies and played into it. Leon has a lot of action movie one-liners and the story wasn't mean to be all that deep or complex. Then this remake comes in and tries to totally reinvent the story. While there were some serious parts of the OG game, the remake tries so hard to make it a more dark and serious story. That clashes with the campiness hardcore and robs the game of most of its charm. And it also invents a more critical eye when they try to expand on things and take them more seriously. When Leon drops a one-liner that feels ripped out of an 80s Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, it doesn't work when the game overall has been given a more serious revamp. Unlike games like RE2, which weren't really meant to be seen as goofball B-movie games, RE4 does not benefit from this approach. RE2 remake taking itself seriously works because RE2 tried to take itself seriously and fell flat in numerous scenes cause of the cheesy dialogue and presentation. RE4 being turned into a serious drama makes it look dumb cause the plot is meant to be more in line with a cheesy action movie where the daughter of the president is kidnapped as part of a plan of an evil Spanish worm cult to cripple the US because they don't like the US. It's not meant to be taken that seriously, and the game shines with the goofy one-liners and over-the-top action scenes. In the original games, Ada does help Leon sometimes, but keeping in line with her usual antics, she never really makes things too easy for Leon. At the end of the original game, she helped Leon by tossing him the rocket launcher before taking the sample from Leon and then running off on the helicopter and letting Leon find his way to a jet ski on his own. She was going to betray Wesker, but there was no big show about it. Also, the voice acting in the original was way better. They really dropped the ball with the voice acting in this.
Please, touch some grass.
Right here is a classic case of having the mindset, it's different, so therefore ruined. This is a mindset which surrounds a lot of the discourse, not only this game, but also the other Resident Evil remakes. I can understand it for 3, since it's not good as a remake and not even a great game by itself, but for both the RE2 and 4 remakes, it really seems as though they changed even just a few stuff. They're labeled as bad remakes, even though the whole point of a remake is to give the same core experience as the original, but to update it for the more current audience. Both the RE2 and 4 remakes still give the same core experiences as they were when they originally released, with the survival horror gameplay and the same general storylines, with some changes, such as including some gameplay features from the later games, or even the lore and story additions that were added later on, kind of like the recent Dead Space remake. The Resident Evil 4 remake still has the same aspects the original had, but improves and expands on them, including the story. Sure, the tone has changed to be darker, but does it really totally reinvent, like what this comment claims? No, not really. has most of the same plot beats the original had, but also improves on it in several ways. Honestly, the character work in remakes, at least from what I've experienced, is way better than the originals. Actually, it's honestly way more likable and useful now than what she was previously. Luis has been getting way more screen time, and with more lore and development given to him, it makes his death scene hit harder. And so is his backstory, how he used to work for Umbrella, and his skill to what happens to Raccoon City is what encourages him to do the right thing this time. Colin claims he's a one-dimensional character, but at this point, you know I don't agree with that. Say what you will about Sadler and Salazar for being less over the top now, but Mendez and Krauser have begun a lot more depth now, like what I've said previously on Krauser. Say what you will about Aya's acting, but she's given more of an arc here too. As for the tone, yes, it is more dark and serious moments, but it still has a lot of fun moments and charm to it as well. Like when you use the shooting gallery and get the extra time you have, the same song that plays during the very start of the 2005 game. Leon still has a lot of one-liners, even if they aren't as corny, and he can actually have a lot of really good banter that adds not just their dynamic, but also some levity to the game.
So, you do a lot of missions like this?
Well, yeah, but I'm not used to having such good company.
Is that a compliment?
Take it however you want.
Same goes for the Merchant. He has way more varied dialogue, and he was already cool before, but I love him even more now.
What's that? How have we procured these curiosities? You don't want to know, mate. Not only will you need cash, but you'll need guts to buy that weapon. You missed! That's not like you! What this gun turns heads into pumpkins, mate. Take this for a rampage through the patch.
It has several of the wacky stuff, such as Ramon's statue which shoots fire from its mouth, and some of its own over-the-top elements. Despite the funny crap, the game manages to balance the tone pretty well, and knows when to be funny and when to be serious. I find it so funny that he's ranting about all this, when Colin's reasons for not liking the story are polar opposite. Just shows that Colin is trying to desperately find someone that generally agrees with him, regardless of how accurate the arguments are, or even for the same reason. Plus, I like how he just claims they dropped the ball of the acting for this game, but doesn't substantiate it. Besides Aya, everyone else is good in their own right, or in some cases even better. Learning that Nick Apostolides voices Leon in both remakes wowed me, since I thought they were two different guys. It also shows just how good his range is. Anyway, the fundamental flaw of this comic's logic is that he can't seem to understand that you can tell a more serious version of a previously established story while still retaining the charm the first game had. Just because it's darker, it doesn't try to be serious drama 24/7 like a Zack Snyder movie. Anyway, with this long tangent, let's get back to the video.
I really like the parry mechanic despite it being like on and off. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but when it does, I really like it. But also the game never really clarifies when you can and can't parry certain attacks, so that was kind of weird. Sometimes I would think like I can parry an attack, but then I just get hit, and I'm just like, okay. I'm also really not a big fan of how parrying damages your knife, because it makes you want to do it less often, and that segues me into my other problems. Number one, the ability to dodge just comes and goes, so it's not like you can just be out here like dodging and parrying whenever you want. Like sometimes you just can't dodge, and I just wish it was more consistent like what you can do in like The Last of Us with that combat system.
Finally, to the core gameplay. The knife does have an indicator which you show yourself, which telegraphs to you whether or not you can parry an attack. But the whole point of the knife in this RE4 is to be used to parry as a last resort defense. It shouldn't be anything you should strive to do. It's what makes it way more useful here than the OG, where all you do is use it to break objects such as boxes, find loot, to finish off enemies that are already almost dead while they're on the ground, to save ammo, or to cheese Krauser and Sadler in separate ways. Here you can use it way more often as a reliable defense weapon, or use it while sneak attacking. If it had unlimited durability, that would make it way too overpowered. Plus, you can upgrade the durability at the merchant shop if you're having problems, so just upgrade it next time. There are several other less durable knives you can use if your main one's broken, which are provided pretty decently often, even during both Krauser bosses. For the dodging, The Last of Us has a radically different combat system than the Resident Evil games, even the action-focused ones. A full dodge mechanic robs some of the horror aspect to the game and make it too easy.
My second problem is the movement is kind of stiff. My third problem is there's not much room for creativity, unlike something like Dead Space that allows for creativity with its weapons, or Sunset Overdrive, or The Last of Us and its combat, gunplay, and stealth mechanics. My fourth problem is, and this kind of stems off the creativity aspect, but it's the fact that there's not really a lot of other options besides the usual generic pistols, SMGs, ARs, shotguns. But other than those, you can use like your knife, which does pretty much no damage, so it's pointless to use. You're better off just saving your knife for parries, and you can also use grenades. And genuine question real quick, did anyone actually use the flashbangs? Because I only used them like twice, I think. And lastly, the bottom line with this game, just like most other shooters, is the depth of the gameplay for the most part of the game, which is what you're gonna be doing for the most part. You're just gonna be pressing L2, R2. The reason I've been mentioning games like The Last of Us and Dead Space is because one, they're kind of similar, they're like survival shooters, but they're also something that kind of breathed a little bit of new life into the shooter genre for me. Like Dead Space also comes down to basically just pressing L2 and R2, but that game also has a masterpiece of a horror atmosphere to balance it out. And it also doesn't have those generic ass weapons you see in every other game. And you can use those weapons to get a little bit creative.
I use flashbangs, very often in fact. If you, God forbid, pay attention to the game for just 5 microseconds, you know flashbangs are good at killing the sprouted Plagas. Look at my gameplay for perfect examples of that. One of the merchant notes even tells you that they're weak to flashbangs. Plus, I'll let you chew on this for a second.
Lastly, the bottom line with this game, just like most other shooters, is the depth of the gameplay for the most part of the game, which is what you're going to be doing for the most part. You're just going to be pressing L2, R2. The reason I've been mentioning games like The Last of Us and Dead Space is because one, they're kind of similar, they're like survival shooters, but they're also something that kind of breathed a little bit of new life into the shooter genre for me. Like,
you can't get creative in this game. Just check out this gameplay. Look how creative this guy is. He's using the environment to daze and trip enemies. He has mines laid out where they fall. You can get pretty creative in this game, so all this sounds like a skill issue to me.
Resident Evil has the horror aspect as well, and honestly, I wouldn't really say that. Like, Dead Space had my chest pumping from like the first 10 minutes of the game to the final boss fight. But for Resident Evil, that feeling kind of just wears off in like the first 30 minutes. Except for a couple levels, like a couple of dark sections in the castle, and like a couple of the sections in the castle with Ashley. There was also the boss fight in the Arctic cold room that was pretty scary, and the section where we had to deal with these things. But other than that, the game really wasn't that scary. It still has a great atmosphere, which I'll touch on in a little bit. But for what I think The Last of Us does better is just the gameplay in general. The Last of Us allows you to get more creative than Resident Evil, and you can also consistently get into melee combat encounters where you can dodge back and forth and it keeps it in like a fluid motion. While in Resident Evil, you can kind of do this with the knife, but the knife barely does any damage, and it also breaks very frequently, and you constantly take damage to your knife when you're attacking or parrying. And in The Last of Us, you also have to pick and choose when you get into melee combat encounters because someone with a gun might shoot you from another angle. And the people with the guns in The Last of Us are actually accurate, unlike the projectile weapons in Resident Evil, which actually don't pop up that frequently, and they're about as accurate as Helen Keller. But like I said in The Last of Us, someone with a gun from another angle might shoot you, and they are very precise, so you constantly have to either use stealth or move around through environments and get through cover very quickly, as well as dealing with the different enemy variety that challenges you in different ways. While in Resident Evil, you don't really have to do that. Most enemies boil down to just boring damage sponges with no brain. Resident Evil's gameplay is like if The Last of Us was just only zombies and take away all the human enemy types. It's just kind of disappointing because I really like the parrying mechanic. I just wish they would have implemented the melee combat a little bit more into the combat, or like the gameplay loop.
Wow, dude, you're trying to knife only a Garrador? Yeah, this is just a skill issue. You can use the bells inside the same arena to bait him to attacking those instead, so that we can get free shots on him. Just another example of how this game can get creative, and how it allows you to be creative. I also like how you say that The Last of Us enemies are more accurate, where in your footage, they're missing you frequently even though you're not that far away from them. That one guy charging at you with a hammer and you're using a gun. No contest that RE4 has way more enemy variety. You have the village gun autos, cultists, army guys, all of which will use different weapons, the facehugger Plagas things, sprouted Plagas, Garradors, including the armored variants, chainsaw guys, the chainsaw sisters, the bull guys, wolves, Plagas knights, the bugs, regenerators, the spiky regenerators. Yeah, it's no contest. You also claim that enemies in this game are just bullet sponges, when they're way less spongy compared to the zombies from the past games. Sure, they might have more health than the average enemy Last of Us, but not too hard to take down when you know what you're doing. And that, I believe, ends the response, because man, this was a really bad video. If I have to keep going, I'm probably going to be labeled as a masochist because of all the self-harm I'm about to do. Well, I'm glad I made this video. I'm thinking about making a few more. As I said in the beginning, I like Holland, but this video on this game was awful, and I felt it needed a proper response, unlike what the other guy tried to do. If you have any suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, this is Skids, signing off.